are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to Eagle Point Funding's webinar, Department of Defense Small Business Grant on Sensors, due October 24th. I'll be your host today, Avraham Mel, Director of Marketing and Sales Support here at Eagle Point Funding. Here's my contact information if you want to reach out. Here's my email address and my phone number. Feel free to reach out anytime. I'll start off today by giving you a little introduction about small business innovation research and small business technology transfer, which are the two programs that make up the staple federal funding opportunity through the U.S. government. The SBIR and STTR are the two acronyms for the two programs. SBIR is the Go Alone business grant for businesses to apply on their own for federal grants, and STTR is using a research institution as a partner, such as a university. These two programs support R&D and financing of cutting-edge technologies. There's about $2.5 billion set aside annually for these awards. SBIR programs have awarded over $43 billion to research-intensive American small businesses to date, and about 160,000 awards have been granted to date. To give you a little more background on the STTR program in case you're interested in it, it's not the topic for today, but just so you know, the STTR again stands for Small Business Technology Transfer. It's the sister program that helps facilitate cooperative R&D between small business concerns and U.S. research institutions with potential for commercialization. It makes up about 0.45% of the extramural research budget, which comes out to about $250 million or a little larger now. And they actually only work with a smaller number of the federal agencies than the SBIR program. I'll explain that a little later. There are 4 goals of the program for SBIR STTR. The first is to meet federal research and development needs. The second is to increase private sector commercialization of innovation derived from federal research and development funding. Number 3, to stimulate technological innovation. And 4, to foster and encourage participation in innovation and entrepreneurship by socially and economically disadvantaged persons. We're going to focus on SBIR for this 3-phase program slide. There are 3 phases to SBIR. Phase 1 is for a $150,000 award for R&D for 6 months. Phase 2, which comes after Phase 1, which you can only apply for if you've won a Phase 1, is for $1 million for 2 years. That's followed by Phase 3, which again you need to have won a Phase 2 to apply for, and it focuses on commercialization. There's no SBIR funding specifically awarded through Phase 3, but there is usually about a $1 million grant associated with Phase 3 as well. To give you a little background on the DoD opportunity today, the DoD has 3 annual SBIR announcements with due dates on February, June, and October. We're talking about the October deadline for this webinar, and the deadline for October is October 24th. Over half of the annual SBIR budget comes from the DoD, or about $1 billion, so the DoD is the major player in the space, so it's a good opportunity to win big money through the DoD. So who wins these grants typically through the DoD? According to the statistics from the DoD, over half the awards are to firms with fewer than 25 people, a third of awards are to firms with fewer than 10 people, and a fifth are to minority or women-owned businesses. What agencies are participants in the SBIR program? There are 11 agencies: the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, the Department of Health and Human Services, which is not relevant for us, we don't do biotech, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, the Department of Transportation, the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, NASA, and the NSF, National Science Foundation. Differently than that, the STTR program, which is the partnership with a research institution, has only 5 participating agencies: the DoD, the Department of Defense, the DOE, the Department of Energy, the HHS, which again we don't is not relevant to us because we don't do biotech, NASA, and the NSF, again, National Science Foundation. That wraps up kind of our overview of SBIR STTR. Now I'm going to give you a little background on federal funding in general, and then we'll move on to the topics for today. The federal budget for 2018 is $176.8 billion, which is very large. It's larger than it was expected to be. It was expected to only be 151 billion. There's a lot of funding available, so it's big. If you're looking for a grant, just know that there's a lot available. It's a big number, $176.8 billion. There are two kinds of grant mechanisms that you should be aware of. Number one is a BAA, which you see on the bottom left, which stands for Broad Agency Announcements. And the other is what we were talking about earlier, SBIR and STTR. The SBIR and STTR make up 3.2 and 0.4% of the budget, which is much smaller than the BAAs. But that being said, today's topic of conversation is SBIR and STTR. And there is a lot of money, as I mentioned. There's about $2 billion or so dollars available, so you shouldn't discount it. But if you're looking for larger grants for larger periods of R&D funding, a BAA is probably something you want to look into. And you should know that we do work with BAAs and that we're happy to help you with that. And also, if you're not aware of it, it's something to be aware of. Again, it makes up 96.4% of the federal budget, so it's a very large portion. Okay, I'll explain a little bit about the differences between dilutive and non-dilutive funding. Non-dilutive funding, which is what we're talking about today, is referring to federal grants. Federal grants do not give up any equity. There's no equity transfer, unlike VC or dilutive grants where you have to give up shares of your company in order to receive funding. There's no interference in non-dilutive grants. You don't have to take on any advisors or board members. And all IP rights are maintained, meaning you don't have to give up any IP when you receive a federal grant like you might during a VC deal. Okay, so now we'll begin the topics for sensors. Topic number one, thermal characteristics of ferrite phase shifters. This is through the Air Force. The topic here is antennas. The current method to characterize ferrite phase shifters used in phased array antennas during the overall process at OCALC requires a minimum of 16 hours. This characterization has to test each ferrite phase shifter at multiple temperatures and frequencies, then match that response to a specific response curve out of several dozen. It is believed that this could be reduced to less than 1 dozen. It is also possible that a ferrite phase shifter's response could be predicted based on a single temperature or frequency characterization. The Department of Defense is looking for companies to develop a device or procedure that reduces the 16-hour phased array antenna overhaul, and reducing costs and improving quality of the repair is desired. Topic number two, a semi-autonomous field survey device. This is through the Air Force again. The topic here is autonomous sensor devices. The DoD is looking to develop a low-cost semi-autonomous mobile observation device that has the capability to collect data required to comply with the Endangered Species Act, the Sykes Act, and the Migratory Bird Treaty Act that would otherwise require booths on the ground. Topic number three, manually actuated laser intersite communications equipment, or MALIS. This again is through the Air Force. The topic here is communications tech. The DoD is looking for a company to provide tactical, very low swap or size, weight, and power, low probability of detection, intercept, free space, optical, which often is referred to as FSO, communications for the warfighter. This topic is seeking innovative solutions for tactical covert operations and short-distance air-to-air or air-to-ground use to be employed in moving moderate to massive amounts of data, including video, when line of sight or LOS is possible. Topic number four, enabling peel and stick conformal antennas for SUAS. This is again through the Air Force. The topic here is UAS antennas, or drone antennas, something to that effect. The idea here is to develop, demonstrate, and test non-permanent antenna solutions for small unmanned aerial systems. In other words, antennas that can stick and peel to an unmanned air system. Topic number five, a remote egg oiling system with autonomous and automated target object identification for nuisance bird management. This is through the Navy. The topic here is drones. Nuisance birds on the Department of Defense (DoD) facilities can exact heavy tolls on military operations, training, equipment, for example, aircraft or helicopters, and personnel safety for all DoD services. One of the most well-established and least controversial methods to reduce local numbers of nuisance birds is applying oil to eggs in the nest. The Navy is seeking a self-navigating or autonomous with semi-autonomous option, self-searching system that will be able to identify eggs in nests for nuisance bird species and provide the operator with the option of treating target eggs. Topic number 6, asynchronous active 3D imaging. This is through the NGA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. The topic here is 3D laser imaging. The DoD is looking for breakthrough tech that involves decoupled asynchronous active 3D imaging systems comprised of one or more independently mobile laser transmitters and receivers that would allow laser transmitters and receivers to be disconnected and operating independently of each other while providing high-resolution 3D image capture. Topic number 7, automating procedural modeling of buildings from point cloud data. Again, through the NGA, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. The topic here is 3D models. They're looking for a company to create scalable, automated 3D building models similar to Google Maps from attributed point cloud data that render in a web browser to simulate an unknown environment. In other words, generate building models from raw LiDAR and photogrammetrically derived point cloud data by automating a manual process through rule-based procedural modeling. Procedural modeling refers to a computer graphics technique. Deep learning, machine learning, and artificial intelligence can automate the detection of core building attributes from photogrammetrically derived and LiDAR point clouds. Topic 8, globally integrated wargaming. This is through US SOCOM or US Special Operations Command. The topic here is war games. The language used is to determine, quote, what is in the art of the possible, end quote, to improve wargaming strategies, perhaps by using big data analytic tools, machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, and pattern recognition. The topic calls for computationally efficient methods for displaying a large number of emerging sensor feeds into a dynamic environment for exercises in wargaming that supports experimentation and mission preparation via globally distributed command and control. It also suggests improvements in the field of social media, the Internet of Things, including mobile sensors and emerging video and 3D image processing from small unmanned aerial systems and satellite sensors. Topic 8, partner force identification, friend or foe. This is again from US SOCOM or US Special Operations Command. The topic here is communications. They're looking for someone to develop an innovative, low-cost, expendable way to identify partner forces operating in combined formation with special operation or other U.S. forces, whether friend or foe. Language used by the DoD here is to, quote, assess what is in the art of the possible, end quote. This might mean a system or an infrared signature in visible bands. Topic 10, Missile Attitude Measurement System. This is through the Air Force. The topic here is missile technology. The objective is to provide a system to accurately measure missile attitude, i.e. pitch, yaw, roll position, and roll rate, during free flight missile testing at CONUS and OCONUS open air ranges for both daylight and nighttime test operations. That wraps up the topics. I'll give you a little background now on Eagle Point Funding and how we work. We're an international consulting firm specializing in non-dilutive funding. We're the biggest of its kind in the world. We were established in 1999. We have 70 plus full-time employees and 250 plus active clients. A little bit about our successes. We use a multi-submission strategy, which means we recommend our clients to apply for more than one grant at a time. Maybe it would be 3 or something to that effect, because that optimizes your chances of winning a grant. A lot of people only apply for one grant and they get rejected and they give up. If you apply for more than one, you expand your chances of winning greatly. We have over $1.5 billion awarded to date and roughly $70 million annually. And we're a success-oriented business model, which means we charge a fee of success to work with us. For this specific award of the DoD SBIR STTR, here's our financial model to work with us. Our cost to work with you on SBIR Phase 1 is $5,000 with a success fee of 5%. Our cost to work with you on SBIR Phase 2 is also $5,000 with a success fee of 5%. Okay, I'll do a little Q&A here. I'll ask both questions and I'll give some answers. Question number one, which is a pretty common question that people might be thinking, what is the government looking for? So to answer that, typically what the government really is looking for, a couple of small criteria to explain, are an internal R&D program within the company, a long-term roadmap, and generally speaking, revolutionary tech, something really tremendous that's going to change the world. So if you have something revolutionary, even if it's kind of experimental and you don't even have a prototype yet, as long as it's revolutionary and you have some kind of R&D plan, it will probably be relevant and you could still win a grant. Question number two. A lot of people ask this. What are the advantages to winning SBIR? Today's topic was SBIR. If you win an SBIR, what kind of perks might you receive from getting an SBIR other than the grant itself? So I think to answer that, the number one answer would be that once you win one grant, it typically leads to a lot of other grants. You get recognized by the government, you're on their radar, and it might lead to a larger grant, such as a BAA or broad agency announcement, like I mentioned earlier, which are grants for larger dollar amounts for longer periods of R&D. And you never know, winning it, just starting with an SBIR Phase 1 for $150,000 could lead to a lot of opportunities. More than that, if you win a bunch of grants, you could also be considered for contracts. Also, keep in mind that if you win one SBIR Phase 1, which might seem small, that leads to the opportunity to apply for Phase 2. And if you win Phase 2, you could apply for Phase 3. SBIR Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 total about $2,125,000. So look at the Phase 1 $150,000 award as kind of an opportunity to win possibly $2.1 million. Okay, I'll wrap up the Q&A with that point. And that should do it for the webinar. Thank you very much for joining. Let's make a time to chat. If you have any questions or you want to reach out, here's my contact information. This is my phone number and my email address. Also, I'll take this opportunity to mention a point I make a lot, which is if on watching this webinar, you notice that one of the topics that we mentioned today is relevant to what you're working on, that you think you have breakthrough technology in that specific field, we think your best chances of winning are with us, and that you should definitely apply and that we can help you. So feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to field any calls you might want to speak to us about. And here's my phone number and email address again. So feel free to shoot us an email anytime. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and have a good one. Bye-bye.